All right. How we feeling? Feel all right? What do we think of the overhead squat? We like it, we don't like it? It's all right, you can not like things like that. Feels all right? So, of the movements they do in CrossFit, this is one of the ones that gets kind of the most hate. Seems stupid, why do it? When you can back squat more, you can do things like shoulder press to develop your shoulders. There are other things you can work on to build your coordination. Why overhead squat? So the question I was gonna ask you guys is like, is it a stupid CrossFit party trick? Or is it essential and optimal to your normal human functioning? I'm just curious what you guys think. Is it a stupid party trick or is it essential to your well-being? Everyone feel like essential? Can anyone offer me a reason why the overhead squat would be an essential movement for a human being to be able to do? Can anyone think of like a real world example where it matters? It definitely develops flexibility, absolutely.
Balance.
Yeah, you learn how to, yeah, that's beautiful, Larry. That's actually one of the things I have here. It teaches you how to hold the barbell, where is it? Balance. It teaches you a lot about where things are in space, your arms, the object, and being able to hold that in a position where you can stabilize the bar is really important. Can anyone think of a real world example where you might utilize the training of the overhead squat in your real life?
Reaching for something high, like standing on a stool and reaching out to get something.
Absolutely, get full expression of your shoulder flexibility, right? You want to be able to put your arms anywhere over your head and not feel restricted, so I absolutely agree with that. Has anyone ever had to move something that's really heavy from a high position, where you kind of like shimmy yourself underneath it and you use your legs to lift it and then move it? I'm thinking like a folding table or something just heavy and awkward overhead, where you gotta hold it up over your head, get underneath it and lift it. There's a lot of times in life where we're not strong enough to press something up over our head, so we gotta use our legs to lift that object and move it. It's nice to know that you have the strength and stability to walk under something heavy and awkward like that, lift it up with your legs. Another example would be like your kayak or your paddle board. You're in one of those giant shelves that has 4 kayaks in it and you wanna get under the kayak with a buddy. You two lift together on one end, you walk the kayak out, you bring it down, you bring it to the ground, and then you pull it into the water. So I would argue it's a essential movement to your functioning. And I wanna kinda go through how I came to that conclusion, and most of it's just based on like what CrossFit has always offered up for information on like why we do what we do. And I think it's one of the things that really struck me early on. It wasn't just like, do this with no reason why, because if someone tells me to do something, if you don't have a good fucking reason, I'm not doing it. And obviously if someone tells me to do something, I usually wanna go the other direction. I don't know what that is about me, but if someone tells me to do something, I wanna go the other way. So it's the ultimate core exercise. Now, our core is defined as anywhere between like our shoulder and the bottom of our pelvis. So like somewhere in like this region, right? Shoulder somewhere to the pelvis. The core's number one job is to keep you upright and protect your visceral organs, which are the organs inside your trunk, right? That's kind of the main reason we have a core, is to keep those things intact and to keep us upright. When we take an object, like a dumbbell or a barbell, and we displace it or put it up over our head, our center of mass goes somewhere between our pubic bone and our belly button, so somewhere in this region, to somewhere closer to like our neck, head, or even above our head. The heavier the load, the higher your center of gravity goes, because we're balancing the weight of your body plus the weight of the thing that's in your hand. So the heavier that object is, the higher that shifts, which is why heavy overhead squats are harder than light overhead squats. Why you had no problem stabilizing the PVC pipe, but as soon as you put 75 pounds on your head, you're like Tower of Jello, right? That musculature is actively challenged when that bar is placed up overhead. People like to think core exercise, and they see the stuff that's in men's health magazines, women's health magazines, and a lot of this shit. That might help your core some, but it pales in comparison to the amount of loading and force you can put into a barbell that's up over your head and hold it still. So remember, our core is designed to hold us upright. Our core is not meant to do this. We just train it that way because we get an abdominal contraction, you're like sick, ready for the beach, right? But it doesn't really do a lot for your actual core. Deadlifts, squats, presses, overhead squats are far more valuable when it comes to developing your core musculature. In addition, it also develops balance. I think you said coordination as well. Flexibility, like Steph said, Midline strength we just talked about, and then stability. The ability to hold a joint in control so that you don't get hurt is integral to your ability to stay safe up overhead. If you're not hanging with active tissue overhead, meaning you're not actively pressing up, which is why all of you heard, pull back, press up, pull back, press up, over and over again, you're not using the muscles to stabilize the object, you are using tendons and ligaments, structures that have a purpose in your body, but the number one purpose is not to maintain maximal loads overhead. They're to assist in that. The muscles are supposed to do the bulk of the work. So in this instance, we now have an object up over our head that requires us to be very balanced, because you guys felt it. As soon as it came a little forward, a little bit far back, we either knocked off balance, right, Chris, like the first one you did, or we simply just came crashing down to the ground. So we learned to balance that thing overhead, which is in conjunction with coordination, right? Getting all your muscles to fire and put that bar in the right spot takes thought between the ears. And as we've talked about before, training isn't just about what happens to you physically. It's not that I create more muscle, I create more blood flow. It's also the neurological component, because we want to be able to go out and do real things, and the real world requires you to react in an instant. It's nice to know that you've challenged yourself in here, so when you're met with a novel task out there, your brain's like, I got this shit, watch this. Which is why we find a lot of CrossFitters who come to these types of boxes don't have a lot of restriction. Someone says to go do something, cool, I'm in, let's do it. And it's because you're readily challenging yourself every single day here. Your brain learns it. It's a skill, something called neuroplasticity. Essentially what it is your motor neurons, these things in your brain that tell your muscles how to fire, creating better and stronger connections so that you can recruit more musculature and you're better coordinated. Flexibility. You best believe if you're trying to hold that bar overhead, if you don't have shoulder mobility, you're not gonna be able to hold very much weight with the bar out here, right? Something we talked about a lot today, Sue, is being able to pull back and press up on the bar. Now, you were able to hold that PVC pipe overhead for all those reps. And you also demanded a lot of your shoulder to keep that bar there the whole time. Now, if I gave you a metal bar, you wouldn't have the necessary strength to do that, and that bar would come crashing down over and over again, and that would just be bad on the shoulder. So they actually are slightly, well, I wouldn't say slightly, they are rehabilitative. We are working on improving your flexibility in your shoulder when I ask you to hold that overhead and squat. Same goes for you, same goes for Jody, same goes for Chris when he was doing the workout, right? Chris has the strength in his legs to squat more weight. Chris does not possess the flexibility to be in a great position, so he wisely chose to scale the bar, and he got a great workout that did not injure him, just like anything else. The poison's in the dose, right? You use too much of a weight, too heavy, too fast, too soon, that's how overhead squats hurt you. The overhead squat itself is not inherently dangerous. It's the misapplication of the movement. And then stability, we just talk about all the time. The reason why our shoulders are so flexible is because they're a ball and socket joint and they can move freely. But as much as freedom is great, we need to be able to go and lock in, because now we have control of the musculature, right? We have coordination of the muscles firing, and now we're locked in. And what that does for us is it gives us an opportunity to iterate or improve upon our squat. The overhead squat is far harder for you. The overhead squat's harder than the front squat, and the front squat's harder than the air squat. These are iterative movements. As soon as you master a really good air squat, the next step is to move on to a front squat, a back squat, or an overhead squat, and they all challenge you in different ways, whether through loading, through skill, flexibility, stamina, all of that. But it's a great way to iterate the squat once the squat is solid, which is why a lot of us today will spend most of the workout with empty bars or PVC pipes, because we need a rock solid foundation. A better foundation equals a taller pyramid, right? When it comes to movement, think of the pyramid as how much weight you can eventually move or how much workout you can get done inside of an hour-long class. The bigger the base, the stronger the fundamentals, the taller the pyramid. It's diagnostic. I'm watching you guys move, and I can see a lot about who's got tight shoulders, who's done something with their chest this week, who's never put a bar over their head, and it gives me an idea of like who's gonna need what type of environment. So we don't do it all the time in our warm-ups, but when we warm up with an overhead squat, it gives me a really good picture into how you're feeling today. I can see your mood, like, fuck, overhead squats. But I can also see who's flexible, who's loose, who's tight, who's struggling to understand what their body parts are. Super valuable for us coaches. So we use it for a diagnostic tool. It also teaches us how to apply force in our extremities, right? When it comes to being an athletic person, and I want you guys to think of being athletic as just being able to go out into the world and do whatever you want, right? Not necessarily sign up for the NFL or the NHL, but just like go out into the real world and do stuff. This teaches you how to apply force effectively, which means if I'm gonna move something heavy, I don't wanna just pick it up with my arms and hope my hips can help me. I wanna keep my hips closed, open them, and then use my arms to help me. Again, that's thinking like the dog food, the mulch, the heavy bag of concrete, something heavy that's gotta go from the ground to overhead. This movement teaches me how to stabilize everything and then move at my hip joint, which is super valuable in the real world. When done correctly, we learn to use the big movers ahead of the little movers, meaning use our hips and our core ahead of our legs and our arms. And when we do that correctly, the muscles that are designed to support the most amount of force get to, and the ones that aren't, don't. That helps us stay injury-free, which is why for a lot of us today, again, the weight went down. It was more about can you do it well than can you do it, the should versus can argument. So I would say for those reasons, the overhead squat is integral to your health, but doing it in the right dosage for where you are is the key to using it. Because it, just like anything else, can be misappropriately used, and all of a sudden now we get an injury because we overhead squatted more than we were ready for, or faster than we were ready for, or at higher volumes than we were ready for. So I think you guys did a great job today, and hopefully this kind of explains a little bit more of the why we do it. It's not just like, ha, you can't do it, hazing you. That's not it at all. And that's honestly some of the opinions people have had of it in the movement. It's just like, cool party trick, it's stupid. Like, good for you, you can do that. But it, used correctly, helps you have a more solid squat, makes you a healthier and more capable human being, which is, again, at the end of the day, my number one goal for all of you. I love if you get good at CrossFit. I want you to have the same bug I have, the same virus I have, addicted to the shit. But realistically, if you don't, but you find value in your real life, we're winning. And that's what we're about here. Cool? Do you guys have any questions? Awesome. Well, thanks for hanging out for a few extra minutes. Hopefully I didn't impede any meetings or things you have to get to, golf courses to get to. But, you know. Oh, come on, Steph. All right, guys. Well, thanks for hanging out. I'll see you guys tomorrow.